Well, after being married for this long, it's only natural that a man might find himself attracted to another woman. A little affair here or there isn't such a big deal, quit nagging. Faced with the fact of his infidelity, my husband Tyler shouted back in a fit of anger. Instead of worrying about that, you should be getting ready for Christmas. You've got the decorations and the Christmas tree ready, right? I'm going back to my parents' house for the New Year holidays. When I answered that, Tyler pulled a folded piece of paper from a drawer in the cabinet and thrust it into my hands. What? If you're leaving me behind, then let's just get a divorce. Here, I've already filled out the divorce papers. Sure enough, when I opened it, there was the divorce form, filled out with Tyler's name. Why do you have this ready? Because the affair you're accusing me of is actually my true love. So that's his angle. Caught in an affair with a woman 20 years younger than him, he stood his ground. What a sorry excuse for a husband. In a rage, I signed the divorce papers with unusually large letters. The tears streaming down my face weren't from sadness. They were because I felt utterly pathetic for having supported such a man for so long. If that's the case, I need to make sure Tyler experiences the kind of heartache that leaves a mark. I packed my things and left the house, heading straight to the county court to submit the divorce papers. Leaving City Hall, I kicked a stone on the ground with all my might and started walking. I'm Ashley, a 55-year-old housewife and office worker at an insurance agency. My 30-year-old daughter is already married and lives in an apartment in the same town. I lived alone with my husband Tyler. Tyler quit his job when our daughter graduated from a junior college and declared himself a day trader, living aimlessly for the last 10 years. I don't know whether he's not making money or not doing anything at all, but now he hardly contributes to our living expenses. Despite my bitter feelings towards him, I've been supporting my daughter and myself by working while he did as he pleased. And this is the thanks I get, a cheating scandal and divorce papers. Until our daughter Melanie graduated, Tyler worked at a financial institution, a perfectly ordinary husband. He never did any housework, but he left for work in the morning and came home at night. He had overnight business trips about once a month and weekly company drinking parties or entertainment evenings. He wasn't particularly bad with alcohol or money, just a typical husband you could find anywhere. But looking back, I wonder if it was suspicious even then. Given his industry, I never doubted his business trips and entertainment as anything but necessary, but perhaps those were the days he cheated. Being a ladies' man was his only real flaw. My friend just started working at the same company as Dad. Before she was married, my daughter told me this. Dad's really got a bad reputation there. He's always hitting on the young female staff, inviting party hostesses to drink parties. And just loves girls in general. Really? That's kind of embarrassing. There are also rumors of his affairs, so be careful, Mom. Sadly, until Melanie told me that, I had never suspected Tyler's philandering. While juggling housework and raising a child on my own, and maintaining a full-time job, I never had the spare energy to worry about Tyler's actions. Tyler sat around even when I was busy with housework, and when Melanie was little and crying, he wouldn't even pick her up. Housework and childcare were solely the wife's duty. A man was supposed to just work, and then meals would be served and the house and clothes kept clean as if by magic, he must have thought. At that time, exhausted from domestic chores and work, I didn't even have the capacity to express my grievances to Tyler. Tyler and I both have no siblings. My father passed away due to illness when I was in 6th grade, and since then, my mom raised me by herself. It's all right, we have Dad's insurance money, and I'm working too. You don't need to worry about anything, Ashley. My mom, a medical office worker, always said this to me with a smile. But I know that my mom sacrificed her own desires to send me to a junior college. To me, she is not only the most respectable person in the world but also the most wonderful woman. Now at 75, she still lives energetically at her home. She has a boyfriend, and they laugh about being a 155-year-old couple, always looking happy. On the other hand, Tyler's mother was a hopeless case. One day, she eloped with her lover, leaving her husband and Tyler behind without a trace. Fortunately, or unfortunately, Tyler was already in college at the time, beyond the age of needing parental care. Still, it seems my father-in-law struggled to balance unfamiliar household duties with his job. Ashley, please just don't have an affair. When I married Tyler, his dad tearfully made this request. I don't care if the housekeeping is a bit rough, and you don't need to pamper Tyler. But please, whatever you do, don't have an affair. There's nothing more painful. His dad, being a man of means, generously lent us his house to live in for free while he moved into a small rental apartment. He's quiet and kind, never imposing or making unreasonable demands on us. I am grateful to him and hold him dear. I hate to upset him, but it seems I have no choice but to explain our divorce and its reasons. After submitting the divorce papers, I stopped by Melanie's apartment before heading to my parents' home. I wondered if it would be an inconvenience to show up unannounced, but Melanie was home alone. What's this all about? A sudden divorce, cough cough. Shocked by my story, Melanie choked on her coffee. Are you okay? It's because you surprise me like that. I waited for Melanie to calm down before detailing everything that had happened. So, Dad had the divorce papers prepared well in advance? Yes, it's a terrible story, isn't it? It's more than terrible. And having them perfectly filled in? He was too well prepared. Melanie said this, tilting her head as she munched on cookies I had bought on the way. I don't know who she takes after, but she has always had the insight to see through things. Then, suddenly, Melanie looked up. Dad has always loved women, right? Well, yes. I even sneaked a peek at his computer, and it was full of images and videos that I can't even mention. Plus, he was often out of the house for business trips or drinking parties, so it wouldn't be strange if he was cheating. But until now, he hadn't slipped up. I could kind of understand what Melanie was getting at. And yet, this time he slipped up so badly that even I noticed his affair. Maybe Dad intentionally let you catch on to his affair so he could be with that woman. If he calmly discussed divorce, he would have to explain everything. That's why he might have set it up so I would impulsively file the divorce papers. That would explain why the divorce form was already filled in and signed. And indeed, I had acted exactly as he might have anticipated. Unforgivable. Indeed, Melanie was right. Although now an apparently unsuccessful day trader, Tyler had worked at a top financial institution for many years. He probably had some savings, and he didn't put all of his severance pay into our household. He must be up to something. Mom, you can't just let this go. You have to show Dad he can't get away with this. It's just too much. As tears threatened to fall, Melanie took my hands and spoke with determination. I squeezed her hand in return, and the tears I couldn't hold back anymore started to flow. I felt so frustrated. Just utterly frustrated. Leaving Melanie, who couldn't accompany me due to upcoming guests, I headed to my parents' home alone. Even though you said you'd scare the hell out of him, he's still your dad. Are you sure this is okay? Before leaving her, I somewhat worried and asked Melanie, and she sighed as if exasperated. If it were anyone else, it might not be so bad, but it's because he's my dad. It's embarrassing to be pointed out by friends that your father is fond of women. So yes, I'm really okay with this. Hearing Melanie say this, I decided to tell my father-in-law everything. When I arrived at my parents' home, I rang the doorbell with that resolution in mind. Hello? My mom's cheerful voice was followed by the door opening. Her face, looking much younger than her 75 years, greeted me with a big smile. Oh, Ashley, welcome. It must be cold out there. I stopped by Melanie's place and warmed up a bit. May I come in? Of course, come on in. Were you and Dad having a nice time? Sorry to interrupt. I apologized to my mom as I entered and headed to the living room. It was the same small, old, but warm house I had grown up in. Now, it was a home where my mom shares her life with someone she loves. As I walked into the living room, that person was reading a leaflet on the sofa. Hi, Dad, I said. He looked up and smiled warmly at me. Ashley, I thought you'd be busy with Christmas preparations by now, or are you done with those? Indeed. The man my mom was with was my father-in-law, Tyler's father. They had suppressed their feelings for each other for a long time due to their roles as in-laws through their children's marriage. However, now in the twilight of their lives, they had finally allowed themselves to be honest about their feelings. Tyler didn't know about this yet. Dad. As I looked at the gentle face of my father-in-law, Gordon, so unlike Tyler's, I started to cry. "What's wrong, Ashley?" Gordon changed his expression in alarm. My mom, who had brought a tray with a mug on it, also looked surprised to see me crying. She quickly set the tray on the table and sat me down on the sofa. "Dad, Mom. Before I came here, I submitted the divorce papers to the county court," I managed to say through my tears. I explained everything to them in detail. Probably the most shocked of all was Gordon. "Tyler did what?" "Cheated, of all things." "Ashley, I'm truly sorry," he said, apologizing deeply after hearing my story. "It's not your fault, Dad. Please don't apologize. I always told him, if anything, not to have an affair. After his mother ran off with another man, I thought he understood how painful that is." Gordon muttered sadly and then picked up the phone from the table. Despite being 80 years old, he was more adept with mobile phones than I was. "I'll call Tyler over here so we can talk. An affair is bad enough, but to divorce you without giving you a dime, that I cannot allow." He stood up and quietly left the living room. My phone rang a few minutes later. It was Tyler, and I rejected the call at first, but he kept calling back. After the 12th persistent call, I reluctantly answered. "What do you mean, Ashley?" Tyler sounded utterly distraught. "My dad called me super angry, telling me to come to your parents' house right now. It's probably about the divorce papers I filed." "But why your parents' house? Did you call my dad over there?" Tyler, unaware of his father and my mother's relationship, would indeed be confused. "More importantly, you should probably come quickly. You know how much your dad hates infidelity, right? You told my dad I cheated? It's the cause of the divorce, I couldn't just not mention it." Tyler was likely worried about upsetting his wealthy dad who had been letting us stay in his house for free. Despite being very active and youthful, Tyler was certainly aware of his dad's wealth. "Are you at your parents' house? And your mother?" "We're both here. And of course, your father is too." After I told him that, Tyler said he would be heading over and then hung up the phone. Knowing that his dad had heard about his infidelity, he must be feeling anything but calm right now. Gordon had been deeply hurt by his wife's affair and subsequent elopement. That's why he would surely not forgive Tyler's infidelity. While waiting for Tyler in the living room, I glanced at what Gordon had been looking at. It was a leaflet for a nursing home. "Are you and Mom discussing moving into a nursing home?" After scanning through the leaflet, I asked my mom in the kitchen. "Well, yes. Gordon and I can still manage on our own, but who knows how long we'll stay that way. We're both old now." My mom looked at Gordon with a soft and loving expression. "That's why we're looking into nursing homes where we both can stay. You two really get along well. I'm happy to see you so content, Mom. But now, there's a big worry with you suddenly getting a divorce, Ashley." As my mom expressed her concern, my father-in-law returned to the living room, holding a piece of paper in his right hand. Just as I was about to ask what the paper was, the doorbell rang. It must be Tyler. "Don't worry, I'll get it." I stood up with determination and walked to the door, opening it to find Tyler with a hardened expression. "What's the meaning of this?" As soon as he saw my face, Tyler's expression grew stern. "Why would you discuss my infidelity with my dad? And why here, at your parents' house? You'll understand once you come in. Why don't you come up?" I was going to anyway. Tyler came in and hurried to the living room. When he saw our parents sitting together on the sofa, his movement halted. Seeing them together, almost like a long-married couple, he must have realized the situation. "Dad, Mom. Are you two, by any chance? Sit down. Are you together? No way. Sit down when I'm telling you to." His dad's voice boomed through the living room like thunder. Startled by his force, I straightened my own back. Seeing how frightening he could be when angry was a new experience. Chastened by the yelling, Tyler, who had thrust the divorce papers at me with such audacity before, now sat in front of his dad with a frightened expression. "I've heard the story from Ashley. You blew up when she pointed out your affair and then handed her the divorce papers? That was, well. And the divorce papers were already filled out, right?" "Well, that's just how things turned out, or a misunderstanding of." I'm asking you a direct question, answer without the excuses. Again, his dad's thunderous voice rang out. Flustered, Tyler muttered a quiet, "It's true, I'm sorry." Tyler, after all the pain you felt from your mother's affair, how could you do the same to Ashley? And to prepare divorce papers in advance and have her submit them? I just handed her the papers. I never thought she'd actually file them. Do you think that excuse is acceptable? Do you realize how much you've hurt Ashley? As he spoke, his dad spread out the paper he had brought with him on the table. It was an unfilled marriage certificate. I wonder when he obtained them. Tyler, as you've guessed, I am in a relationship with Ashley's mother. You've deeply hurt and insulted someone very important to me, my partner's daughter. I had no idea. I never dreamed you two could be involved. That doesn't change the fact that you cheated. His dad rebuked Tyler sharply, speaking with the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. As such, I will no longer assist you in any way. The house I've been lending you for free will be put up for sale immediately. You'd better start looking for an apartment and move out quickly. What? I don't have the money to live in an apartment. Aren't you making money with day trading? Regardless of your financial status, the house will be sold right after New Year's. So you can't stay there anymore. No. Tyler slumped for a moment but then noticed the marriage certificate on the table. His expression turning desperate. What's this marriage certificate for? You're not planning to get married, are you? Exactly, we are getting married. If you do that, it will have the inheritance I'd receive from you. Tyler blurted out reflexively, then immediately clamped his mouth shut, realizing his gaffe. But once spoken, his words couldn't be taken back. What was that? I seized the moment to chime in. Your dad has always been so generous, watching over us quietly, lending us his home for all these years. And now, hearing about his remarriage. All you worry about is your inheritance? That's disgraceful. That's right. And I can't forgive what you've done to Ashley either. My mom joined in. Find an apartment and move out quickly. We can't contest the sale of the house since it belongs to your dad. But I can't afford rent for myself and for her. Tyler muttered under his breath, then quickly covered his mouth again. But I had clearly heard him. Rent for myself and for her, for 2 apartments? Tyler, are you paying rent for your mistress too? His voice thundered louder than ever. I'm sorry. Not contributing enough to household expenses, and yet you do this. It's too much, Tyler. It's disrespectful to both Ashley and Melanie. Both his dad and my mom's faces were flushed with indignation. Anger welled up inside me, making my stomach churn. I've had enough. Tyler, once the real estate market opens after the new year, find an apartment and move out of the house. But you will not receive any inheritance. I plan to spend my wealth freely. Eventually, we'll move into a luxury care facility. So there won't be much left for you. His dad stated emphatically, pointing towards the door. The discussion is over. Get out now. Wait, please, I don't have that kind of money. Enough. Get out. Resigned to his fate, Tyler stood up weakly and left the house. Relying on his dad's wealth, living carelessly and squandering money on women, it seemed that was his plan all along. I felt no sympathy as I watched his shaky departure. When the new year came, my dad followed through with his promise to sell the house. It sold quickly. Tyler ended up in a dilapidated, cheap apartment. It turned out he hadn't seriously pursued day trading in the last decade, living off his severance instead. He had planned to rely on his dad's wealth for his retirement. When he could no longer pay his mistress's rent, she quickly left him. It appeared he had been attracting women by flaunting potential wealth. Indeed, when the money ran out, so did the relationship. Now, Tyler is living alone, juggling multiple part-time jobs. My dad sold the house and gave me all the proceeds as alimony. With that money, I purchased a small but comfortable used condo where I live happily. On weekends, I invite friends over for meals, or visit my parents' home and Melanie's place, enjoying a fulfilling life. Meanwhile, my parents submitted their marriage certificate and are now officially married. My mom struggled to raise me, and so seeing her smile happily every day is truly a joy.